Hello everybody and welcome to this video on Lost Sphear. Lost Sphear is by the development team who did I Am Setsuna, which was an amazing little game that I loved to bits a couple of years ago. And I've been really looking forward to this one ever since it was announced. It's the first major JRPG of the year, so it's great to get it under the belt. I'm working on a full review of the game, which will be up at digitallydownloaded.net. It'll be a full written one, it'll be in-depth, it'll give you everything you want to know about the game. But in the meantime, while I'm working on that, because JRPGs take time to do, I thought I'd pull together a video looking at the first hour or so, or select scenes at least from the first hour or so of the game, to give you a sense of what you'd expect, jumping into it. And I think it's a really great first hour in terms of really setting up the game and being very modern, but at the same time tapping into nostalgia in a way that very few JRPGs do effectively. There's a lot of games that try and be retro-style JRPGs, but they very rarely understand the kind of the tone and the mood and the way of storytelling that this development team does. And you can tell that, with a little bit more of a budget, when you've got a chance to make a retro-themed JRPG, you can do something pretty spectacular. So here we go. This is what you're watching here is the very first scene. It's very mysterious. You don't really know what's going on. You know that you're in control of a king-like character and he's battling a robot thing which looks like a pretty impressive monster. And there's obviously lots of dead bodies around him, so something dramatic has happened, something unpleasant, but you're not quite sure what. And it's quite obvious that you're not going to be in control of this king guy for, long into past the game starts. This is just an introduction to give you a sense and set the scene before you go to, the main character, who will obviously be quite a bit weaker. This is a common trick that they use in JRPGs to show you some of the really powerful stuff that you'll get to play around with later on in the game, before giving you the main character and having you, work up towards those powers. It's really clever. It's a great start. It's a very traditional start. It's got elements in there that will appeal to anybody who played Final Fantasies, early Final Fantasies. I mean, the mechas and all of that is quite, there's a resemblance there to Final Fantasy VI and so on and so forth. Here I am using what looks like summon style powers. And again, I don't really know what's going on, but I'm intrigued. And the storytelling is very minimalist, but it's intriguing, and it's setting the scene, and it's very melancholic, like the music. And you probably can't hear the music because I'm talking over it, but the music is very sorrowful and sad. And anybody who played I Am Setsuna will be immediately familiar with that, because that seems to be what this development team likes to do. They like to create very mellow and sorrowful and soulful kinds of games. And in that respect, I'm immediately drawn into this as a fan of I Am Setsuna, because while I Am Setsuna had the whole wintry landscape and that was the entirety of the game, and this one doesn't have that setting, it has that same feel and emotion about it. And the feel and the emotion is what really drew me into Setsuna. So, as far as I can tell right now, what I'm looking at is a game in which I will be playing basically I Am Setsuna, but with a different kind of setting and different characters and so on, which is great. So here's the kind of the crux of that intro section. I beat the monster, or at least he runs away, the robot thing, and then something weird happens. All the dead bodies, they start disappearing, and the king is left there, and he seems very upset about this, as you can probably imagine. But there's a sense of loss, and it looks like loss and sorrow, and that's going to be a common motif to all of this. So, this man called King, whoever he is has been through something very dramatic, and that drama again is very intriguing. And then they have a small section of text to again emphasize the sense of mystery, because it doesn't really tell you much, but set the scene, set the tone, and you just know that once this fades to black and the real story starts, I guess, you're going to start to fill in the blanks and make sense of the whole story. Okay, so that finishes up, and then the first thing that happens is you wake up, your character, your protagonist, wakes up on a bed. He's been asleep, which is, for anybody who's played JRPGs ever, will understand that that's a very common way to start the RPG. And that gives you a sense that, of course, now you're actually into the meat of the story, and this is probably going to be your major character for the game. So somebody's calling out to him from outside the house. Again, very common JRPG trope. There's a treasure chest in the room. Again, a very common JRPG trope, which just encourages you to check it out and start to get a sense for, how to play the game, how to collect treasure, all that kind of stuff. And then he has a conversation. He's introduced to another character, another major character, Twin Tails, which is great. Kanata is your main character. That's his name. And now we know who his name is. And then we also know her name, Lumina. And we know what they need to do. They need to go and find the Elder to get their first little quest, I guess, as such. So they join up, they wander around town, they talk to everybody, you get a sense of the village and the people and the lifestyle, and it's all, it's a very rural town, as is very common for JRPGs, and it's, very laid back, and people are enjoying the good life. And you get a chance to start interacting with people and get a sense for the world that's built around them. For anybody who played I Am Setsuna, it's immediately obvious that it's less miserable in the sense that, it's not that wintry, blighted landscape. There's life and vibrancy in this world, which is great. That's what you want. It's a very different kind of beast. You just had the similarities in terms of the tone and the sorrow from the introduction sequence, and now you've got a sense that this game is its own work, and it's not just a direct follow-on from the predecessor, which is encouraging for somebody who played I Am Setsuna and still wants something different, while at the same time wants the same heritage from the same developer. So they've just been told that there has been a monster that's been spotted in town, and they need to go and ring a bell to warn the entire town that there is a creature running around town, and they need to try and find the monster and get rid of it. For some reason, these kids are guardians of the town. We don't quite know why yet, but they are, and there's a third of them, and they don't know where this third one is. His name's Locke. Now, Locke is a clear reference to Final Fantasy VI, which is good, because Locke is a great character, and I'm hoping that Locke turns out to be a great character in this game as well. So they agree to go and ring the bell and find the monster, and then they, you wander around town a bit more, you wander to where the bell is, and there's Locke. So we get introduced to Locke, and I'll just let this conversation run out a bit, because it's quite funny, and you probably want to pay attention to that more than listen to me ramble on a bit more. So here we go. So yeah, we get a sense that Locke is a larrikin type character. He's a bit silly, he's a bit nonsense, he's got some funny lines, and we get a sense now of the dynamic between these characters. And whereas with I Am Setsuna, everybody was quite serious because it was a very serious thing that they were on, at least in this early stage of Lost Sphear, there's a light dynamic between the characters. They have banter and they have fun, and they're kids basically, so they're just having a good time, and nothing's too serious and nothing's too dramatic for them just yet. They ring the bell, and that's great. Then they head back down, and they actually, manage to track down the monster pretty quickly. And we get a sense, for the first time, we kind of see the first monster that you'll fight. Interestingly, this fight you don't control. Normally with a JRPG, yes, the first fight would be a ridiculously easy monster like a slime or something from Dragon Quest, but you'd be required to do the fighting yourself. In this one, that fight kind of plays out by itself, which is interesting. It seems to be a scene that's more played with humour than anything else, and I found that quite fascinating. I found that quite enjoyable. It means that you don't have to waste time pressing buttons and going through commands when you've already fought with the king right at the start, and he was obviously very powerful. There was no need to actually fight this battle. This is more a scene setting battle. And yes, you do. So after that, now that you've rung the bell and you've protected the town as such, your next job is to go and get some fish. But first, you come across, and this is a nice a nice way of doing some portent and some setting the scene for later on down the track. This little boy, he has a toy that he really likes, and his toy has disappeared on him right in front of his very hands, and he doesn't know where the toy's gone. It turned white and disappeared, which is what happened, if you remember, to the soldiers in the introductory sequence. So now we're starting to see the link between what happened in the intro and what happened here. Right now we don't have a sense of what all of this means. Obviously, if you've followed along with the news of the game, you know what it means. But if you're playing this for the first time and going in without any information, now you're starting to think, oh, okay, so stuff's disappearing. The bodies disappeared when the king, had his fight at the start of the battle. This kid's now lost his toy. What does all of this mean, and how's it going to impact on the flow of the story? And all of a sudden, all that lightheartedness starts to create, starts to be contrasted with some meaning. You'll then go back to your job to go and try and catch a fish for dinner, and you get a sense of the overworld. The overworld is quite beautiful. I didn't fight a battle while I was in this overworld to start with, so if you played I Am Setsuna, you might think, oh, maybe, just like I Am Setsuna, there's no kind of overworld battles. I'm not going to spoil that for you. And then you get to the lake and you do some fishing, and it's really interesting that aside from that introductory sequence, the first thing you do in this game is not combat. The first thing you control in this game is actually the fishing minigame. And again, it's just that small difference, that small break from the normal, the JRPG norm, that makes all the difference. It makes you feel like you're playing something modern that has that more kind of developed, rounded sense of narrative, and it's not old school in the sense that it's all about combat, and it's not all about fighting stuff and then being directed onto the next thing. There's a more organic sense of the world and things to do, and fighting is just one part of the story as opposed to being the dominant focus of it. It's very subtle, and it is very subtle, but it's very clever. I really like it. And then you get another comic scene with our friend Locke. He went fishing with bare hands and got himself in a spot of bother and got fished out by his mate, which was, again, more humour. And then, only now do you fight your first battle. So this is about an hour into the game at this point. I've cut bits and pieces out, obviously. But yeah, about an hour into the thing, you get to fight your first battle and actually control it. And you learn how to move your characters around. And it's a very simple battle, obviously. These are not exactly enemies that are going to threaten you. But it'll give you a sense of the tactics that you can use, because these characters, my two main characters here, they have a short range attack, and then the other guy has a longer range attack and can hit multiple enemies at once. So you get a sense that there will be more tactical depth than you had with the king, and then it'll develop as you collect more weapons and get more party members and all that kind of stuff. So again, it's all very clever. This game is very clever. It's off to a great start. I've got my full review coming, but it just keeps getting cleverer and cleverer, and everything about I Am Setsuna, which was a good foundation for what this development team likes to do, it gets enhanced in this game. This is a much more advanced game. So thanks for watching this video. Look forward to my full review. I might try and do another video. I'm not sure at this stage, but if not, definitely look forward to my review. Look forward to the game. It's a good start for JRPGs for 2018. Thanks for watching.